Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wear Many Hats. Great to have you all with us again. I'm your host, Mark Robinson, and today we are going to be speaking to an individual that I have known for several years, that I've worked with on projects previously, and somebody that I'd like to call a friend within the industry. I'd like to welcome Jason Taylor of Knight Frank. Hello, Jason. How you doing?
Hi there.
Lovely to have you on the show. You all right?
Lovely to be here.
You had a good day?
Very good day. Very good day.
What have you been doing?
Well, I'm due to finish for Christmas in a couple of days, so lots of loose ends to tie up and seeing people and wishing them happy holidays and that kind of thing. So, yeah, good stuff.
Getting around the team and all that stuff, making sure everybody's happy and they've got all they need. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So, are you doing anything over the period? Just spending time with family? Or?
Family time.
Yeah.
Family time.
Are you cooking the Christmas dinner?
No.
I feel like I'm the only person that cooks the Christmas dinner. It's like everybody looks at me like, why are you doing it? To be fair. What do you tend to have over Christmas dinner, out of interest?
My wife's from Czech Republic, so in that part of the world, the 24th is the main day. So we have a very traditional Czech evening meal.
Yeah.
And then we do the same again, English traditional meal on Christmas Day.
So you get two big meals then as opposed to one?
Yeah.
Right. Hang on a second. Didn't you used to be a chef?
Yeah.
How do you get out not cooking the Christmas dinner?
I'm not getting paid for it.
All right, fair enough. That makes sense. All right, well, listen, I always like to start with an easy one, Jason. Obviously, the show's about you. It's not about me. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about your career journey? Tell us, obviously you were a chef originally. How did you come into FM and how your career has developed over that period?
Happy to. So I, as you say, left school, trained as a chef. That was not a conscious decision.
Right.
I think at school, I wasn't particularly academically motivated.
Didn't enjoy it?
Well, I enjoyed it, but not necessarily for the learning.
Right.
So when it approached time to leave school and embark on work, I think I'd floated the idea of being a chef to my family.
Right.
And I remember distinctly my mum and my nan turning around and going, "You won't be able to do that. It's too much like hard work."
Oh,
really?
Right. Okay.
So I'll show you was the mentality.
The heckles came up effectively.
Embarked on that, enjoyed it, got trained up as a chef, worked for Hilton and Whitbread.
Yeah.
Really liked that. Then started to get a bit fed up with the hours.
Right.
Then
quite unsociable.
Yeah. I mean, you tend to make your social network around work. And I think
of course.
That's kind of a theme that's progressed throughout the years.
Yeah.
So went into retail after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
To two of the toughest industries there is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the motivation of working less hours, I fell flat on my face with that because retail's just as busy.
Yeah.
And retail was where I really got into kind of mentoring.
Right.
And it was my first instance of being able to help a young man that was on a very similar trajectory to me, not particularly academically motivated.
Yeah.
And then from there, I got into training and development.
Right.
So I was a MBQ assessor and then kind of modern apprenticeship project manager.
Really? Right. Okay.
Faced the choice of moving up to Halifax or redundancy. So I kind of took redundancy because
you wanted to avoid the north that badly.
Well, I hear it's quite cold up there.
To be fair, Halifax is a chilly town, actually. To be honest, I do have to. I mean, I'm from the deepest, darkest northeast, but Halifax, it's right in the moors. It is a chilly town.
So I made the right decisions. So I then had the opportunity through a friend to go and work at Three Mills, film studio and TV studio in East London.
Oh, really?
And I was the phone guy. So basically, I had no experience. I got on-the-job training to patch telephones into production offices and help support on IT and things like that.
Yeah. How old were you then, Jason, out of interest?
Early 20s.
Right, okay, so still quite young then.
Yeah. And then got the opportunity to take on an operations management role at that studios.
Right.
Because I'd done from my project management experience and things like that. And that was one of the most enjoyable jobs that I've had.
Really?
Kind of growing the team there. I learned a lot about health and safety and facilities management in quite a unique arena. And then LDA, London Development Agency, bought 3 Mills in preparation for the Olympics, and GVA Grimley were appointed as managing agent, so I tutored into them.
Right, okay.
First exposure to managing agent and how they deal with things as opposed to working for an owner or operator. And that's where I got my kind of NEBOSH training and things like that. And I had a very keen number 2 at 3 Mills that was nipping at my heels. So I put myself out to GVA that I could take on more work and got involved in the commercial element.
Right.
So that was, again, service charge budgets, exposure to that was, really, really, really interesting. And then I got poached some years later by my old boss to go and work at Bloomberg.
Oh, really?
So client-side FM is completely different again.
Yes.
Again, very interesting.
Yeah.
Different priorities, I'd say, and it's more workplace than FM in the kind of traditional sense. And then after that, I joined Knight Frank, or Knight Frank Promise on the residential side.
Right, okay.
So I originally joined to head up that team and mobilise quite a large estate in South Kensington.
Right.
And I can remember on my very first day, I was asked to go to a coffee morning down in South Kensington where the management team were meeting the residents down there.
Yeah.
And I can remember some very, emotive residents, shall we say, asking how long I'd worked for Knight Frank, and turning around and saying about 20 minutes. But that was fun. Built a team there. Residential is really an interesting arena to apply FM.
It's very different, isn't it? Very different to commercial. Yeah.
And then I had the opportunity to move back into commercial for Promise.
Right.
And that was to head up the Central London FM team.
Which I believe is where we met, actually, several years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then 18 months ago now, I took over as head of commercial FM.
Fantastic. And you're now in a national role, I believe.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. And how do you find that? Interesting. Another change, obviously, in terms of your career?
Yes, yeah. It was a good step. A lot of people putting their faith in me. I'd had my eye on the role for some time, and I had supported my boss in a number of kind of initiatives.
Of course,
but it's great. I'm getting to work with people that I've known for a long time, helping them to grow and develop in terms of their roles, and what we're expecting to do as a business. So very interesting.
Okay, so going back like bit further back in the career when you decided as an operations manager that you wanted more responsibility at GVA Grimley, the people out there that are probably looking to get into those kinds of roles, what drove you to that? Did you feel like I've got the skills now, I've got the competencies, I think I can do that? How did that decision happen? What did you do to push yourself into it?
I think I've always been a vocational learner.
Right.
So if I was to go back to that young man that didn't know what he wanted to do when he was leaving school, and said by, some years later you'd be heading up a national commercial FM business.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have believed me.
No.
And I think I've done better in the vocational world, and even through still doing academic studies, but through work than a classroom environment. And I think by the time I'd got to 3 Mills and that operational role at GVA, I'd gone through quite a number of changes in career, and there were opportunities to transfer skills from the previous career, but also develop and learn more. And I saw being able to allow my number 2 at 3 Mills the opportunity to take over that role. The only way that I could progress is to ensure that I had somebody capable to fill the gap behind me.
So that succession planning has always been an important facet, and does that go back to the learning and development piece of your career, where you realise that's important, that's something that I need to focus on?
So when I was doing the learning and development, the assessing, when you saw somebody enjoy that process, and these young people that were undertaking MVQs and modern apprenticeships at the time were very much like me, had not really embraced the school life kind of thing. So they were potentially without very many GCSEs, but were still very good at their jobs when you came to assess them, whether it was customer service, retail, or whatever. They were really good at their jobs. And so we wanted to make sure that they got that qualification, that it was meaningful, that they felt that they'd earned it, because then they take pride in it. And I think that interaction and getting people that were not particularly academic, it was really motivating for me. And I think in terms of the succession planning, that's just FM. You ask what if, what if I win the lottery? What if I get hit by a bus? Whatever. Who's gonna look after the day job?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's really interesting because obviously when you were doing the learning and development piece, you were still quite young, really, in terms of your career, and that's quite an important thing to be doing if you're, firstly, I guess not necessarily identifying talent, but developing talent or developing young people when you're a young person yourself. So that must have actually, from a character perspective, that's quite a lot on your shoulders at a young age. Do you agree?
Yes, I think I was always quite a bolshy young lad.
Okay.
So, I knew what I knew.
There's always an element of confidence about you. Yeah.
So, and I think that's matured. There were certain approaches that I took when I was a younger manager that potentially
you wouldn't take now.
I wouldn't take now.
Right.
And I think at the time, because I was closer to the age of the people that I was assessing, I could speak of my own experience.
Yeah.
So I was quite. A few years ago, I was in your position.
So there was common threads, and you still remembered.
Yeah, and I'd gone through that MVQ process.
Yeah.
So having gone through those qualifications, it made me. I could talk about the benefits of those qualifications.
Yeah.
So having those qualifications, and part of one of the retail qualifications is I undertook the assessor modules.
Yeah.
So it enabled me to change my career.
Right. Okay.
So having, if there was something, this is building a foundation for you going forward.
Yeah.
So it's planting the seed that, you don't necessarily have to stay in the job that you're in right now. You're young enough that you can change direction.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'd already done that several times.
You can take a risk. Yeah. Would you say?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. But it's really interesting that attitude seems to have followed you throughout your career. And it seems to have become part of your, I guess, professional ethos. Mm-hmm. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Good stuff. Okay. So kind of moving back to that, in terms of learning and development, specifically in the FM piece, if we have listeners out there that are thinking about, moving into the space, is there any specific learning or anything that you think would be of real benefit to people looking to move into it?
IWFM is a brilliant resource.
Yeah.
But I think that taking the opportunity from a vocational space to be able to, there's nothing like learning on the job.
I completely agree. I did the same thing, so I completely agree. Yeah.
I think it's a great way to get practical experience whilst you're obtaining a qualification.
Yeah.
One of the great things about FM is you can be an accountant and still work in FM.
Yeah, we've had one actually.
Yeah, you can be a learning and development manager. Specifically looking after individuals in FM. And we have, one of the great things about the industry is we have people from numerous backgrounds, varied backgrounds that have stumbled and bumbled into FM.
Yes. That's the overarching story. Nine times out, like 99% of the people that we talk to on the show, it's the FM thing, isn't it? I kind of fell into it, really,
But I think if it's someone that's considering FM as a career, it's so varied. The direction in which you can go within that overarching industry is almost unlimited, particularly now in terms of how technology is coming into data.
Yeah.
So it's there's the traditional engineering element of it.
Yeah.
There's a huge focus on customer experience and placemaking and what have you. So we find
workplace experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And client side versus managing agent or TFM or things like that. It's just the variety of people that you've had on this podcast.
Yeah.
Shows the breadth of the industry.
Do you know, I've never really thought about it like that actually, but you are correct. There's so many different, I guess if you call them disciplines within our space, that there kind of is something for everybody, whether it's legal, accounting, finance, whether it's, like you said, engineering, cleaning, security, building management, managing people, managing teams, working on your own, learning and developing. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different elements that feed into this one space that, I've never thought about it like that, but that's it's got me thinking there, Jason. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think all these different work streams or, professionalisms, it does fit under FM.
It does.
It's facilitate and manage. Facilitate is to make things easier. Make things happen, and then manage is talk about controls and things like that. Each one of those specialisms has both of those. We all have customers that we're facilitating and making their lives easier. We equally have to have governance and controls in place to be able to make sure that we're doing things properly and consistently.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, so just moving in together. You obviously manage a team within facilities management. I'm guessing you recruit on a regular basis. Could you tell me what qualities you look for in an individual when you're looking to bring somebody into your team?
So it depends on the role and the seniority. Of course, yeah.
But are there any characteristics that you find are perfect for the environment, I suppose?
I think it's more to do with someone's attitude and approach. So more to do with behaviours. Experience is key depending on the role. If we're looking at this is targeted at people coming into facilities management. So they may not have experience. Previous experience. So we are looking for attitude and aptitude and a willingness to learn.
Right.
A career change.
Yes.
What transferable skills have you got
that you can bring into
you can bring in? And what's that gap analysis and how can we help you in terms of that skills gap?
Yeah.
So it's definitely there's got to be a minimum level of appetite, I think. You can't expect it all to be on your employer to provide you the opportunity and do the work for you.
Oh, no, of course, yeah.
No one should care more about my career than me.
Yep, agreed.
Is my feeling.
Yeah.
So I think there's always got to be what that individual potentially can bring to the table, but how we can bring out the best of them. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
We're looking for what value that individual is going to kind of bring to the team and what value we can add to their career.
Yeah.
And that's quite a woolly answer, but that's relevant at every level. And if there's an experience, if we're looking for an experienced line manager, it's how do you manage people?
Yeah.
I want them to fit in within our culture and our ethos of how we look after people.
Of course.
And that's probably more important to me than them having a, HR qualification or anything like that.
Yeah. So what you're effectively saying is you're looking at not necessarily how that individual fits with you. It's also about how you fit with those individuals or the organisation does and how that comes together and you support each other to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, the interview's a two-way process. I'm selling my team and my firm.
Yeah.
We're a good place to work. We're a good team to be part of. Yeah. And this is what you can expect from us.
Do you know something? You picked on something really interesting there that I think young people, particularly, who are either leaving university or something like that, might not realise that interviewing is to, the company is selling itself to you, and you're selling yourself to the organisation. Because I think, especially when you're young, you're nervous, aren't you? I mean, I remember being young. It was a while ago, but you get nervous, don't you? Yeah, and you think, you think no matter what, it's all you. You've got to sell yourself. You're not really thinking that individual wants your talents as well, and they want to ensure that they fit. So I think that that's a really interesting thing that we should talk about. If you are a young person and you're coming out of university, remember what your value is, and remember what you bring to the table, and remember to ensure that whatever organisation you're speaking to in the FM piece, that there's a fit for you as well, not just for them. And I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, it's really important, because your journey with the wrong organisation, or the wrong fit, shall we say? That's a better way to describe it. The wrong fit. It'll just be really unpleasant.
Yes.
You'll end up being disillusioned. You'll end up, being not that well. Being there for a short period of time.
Yes.
You probably won't be representing yourself in the best light to your new employer. So it's right. And ask questions. Yes. Those. Prep. It's like anything else. Prep for the meeting.
Yeah.
Ask those questions. Do your research. Be polite.
Yeah. Takes nothing to be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, and that goes for the interviewer as well.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Give that candidate the undivided attention. Focus on what's important.
Yeah.
We've had previous people on the podcast talk about unconscious bias and stuff like that.
Very much so. Yeah.
Very important to kind of get a grip on that and not make assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, my wife's currently looking to get back into the workforce after obviously our little one. She's got a nursery in January, thank God. And one of the things that she's been told is, don't put your date of birth on your CV, because unfortunately people will look at it and think
it's irrelevant.
Yeah, but it is irrelevant. But it does unconsciously, it creates that bias, doesn't it? Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, so let's talk about your career specifically. What's been the most challenging part of your career in FM so far? Is there anything that stands out as that was difficult? You really had to overcome something.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because there's nothing that immediately stands out at being an insurmountable challenge. There's been learnings. Right. So coming from Bloomberg into the residential arena.
I bet that was tough, actually.
It is, because you as a commercial building manager or facilities manager, you're used to being in charge.
Yeah.
And you really aren't.
Yeah.
On residential. Again, it's that facilitate and manage kind of process and it's even little nuances like emergency light testing.
Yeah.
A commercial building, you do it out of hours. A residential building, everyone's at home out of hours.
That's true. Yeah.
So you've got to look at how you apply your craft.
Yeah, it's all in reverse, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, and I think it's understanding these are people's homes, it's potentially their money.
Yeah.
If it's not their money, then, they're paying a great deal of rent to be in those locations.
Yeah.
And it's learning that, I think, from, the timescales and my approach in a commercial operation just are not suitable. Customer service is absolutely skyrockets.
Yes.
In residential. And I think that was quite interesting, notwithstanding the legislative differences, the legal differences, in terms of service charges, in terms of how you approach procurement, fire safety, and all of those kinds of things, does add quite a different spin on things.
Yeah.
Working in a film studio, completely different.
Yeah.
It's getting better in terms of health and safety and things like that. But if you imagine a production is a number of individuals coming together for one specific project.
Yeah.
So they're forming a business just for that production.
Yeah.
So the level of kind of expertise and how that team operates can change from one production to another. So getting getting your head around that customer base as well. So I think probably the biggest consistent challenge across all of my is understanding your customer base and being able to adapt and react to the requirements there. And that's probably been my biggest teacher, my clients, my customers, in terms of how I deliver that service.
Yeah. So you'd say adaptability has been one of the core tenets of your personality, one of the things that have, I guess, driven success for you, your ability to do that.
Yes, I've had some challenges put in front of me of how we're going to deal with mobilising a property with 4 hours notice on a Friday.
Yes.
Rebranding a building in 48 hours.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's challenges like that.
Yeah.
Are really exciting, really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you get to think on your feet, and
yes.
you have to be able to know who can help you.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's where your network comes in. But yeah, I think it's one of the things I enjoy most.
That's what I love about it, to be fair. I mean, I don't do what you guys do, obviously, but I do love what I do in terms of being able to, think outside the box, come up with different ways of working, and just really think about a problem, and how to remedy it. Come up with the right solution, I suppose, is
exactly
the best way to explain it. Okay, I guess as well, conversely, what are you really proud of in your career, Jason? Are there any moments that stand out as, that was a really proud moment for me? I was really happy with how that went, or something like that.
I think pretty much every promotion within my team, where we've had a number of individuals that have started entry level, come from a security background, someone from a front of house background, and they have bought that appetite and hunger and grabbed every opportunity that's been presented to them, and are now, our mobilisation and operations manager, directors within our business, that kind of development and progression and personal achievement fills me with pride. And for them, I'm grateful to have been part of it and been able to give them the opportunity. But I can't really take all the credit, because they've done the work. As much as I've embraced that opportunity with my own career, and I suppose that then makes me especially proud. A little wry smile that I see people doing the same thing. That always makes me happy.
You can really see that as well. I mean, people can't see it because there's no video, but you can. Jason is legitimately smiling from ear to ear when talking about it. So that really comes across. So that's brilliant. And to be fair, we have had a few people on the show mention it as well, as you know. So
but again, every single one of those has grafted, earned it.
Exactly.
And taken the opportunity when it's been presented to them.
Without a doubt. Okay, so let's move on to some sort of FM particular subjects. So ESG and how that is impacting the industry, and how people coming into the industry need to be aware of it. How do you see... I mean, ESG is a significant force within the industry. It's definitely going to stay there. How do you see that playing out over the next 5 years? Do you see anything that your experience would say, I can see it going this way, that way? It's just your thoughts on this, really.
Well, ESG, particularly the E, has been bandied around for years. Years and years. And it's good. The S and the G have started to come to the forefront. I think you're right. It's not going to go anywhere.
No.
I think that it provides huge opportunity for people looking to come into FM and certain specialisms. Particularly, particularly client side, but also from a managing agent perspective. The environmental, and particularly in terms of collecting data, being able to inform clients and help them strategize and manage their assets accordingly. We're getting a lot more informed clients on ESG. We're getting a lot more informed tenants on ESG as well.
That's
so they have expectations of their service delivery team.
Right.
The social element of it, placemaking, and how we encourage people back into the office. Because even though we are, as a managing agent, we're only dealing with the communal space.
Yep.
Occupiers have the challenge to get their own people back in and may well be doing their own placemaking and initiatives, but we can certainly contribute
and support
on those as well. And we find that works really well where we have the opportunity to apply it.
Right.
We have one of our buildings. We use a tenant portal.
Right.
And when we launched it, it had the highest take up of engagement from the occupiers across that portal for a new building. And that was down to how the on-site team engaged with the occupiers, really made them aware of what the benefits are. Yeah. And I still subscribe to it. So I get to see all of the content that comes out. And it is, I want to go and base myself out there. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. So that makes a massive amount of difference. But equally, there's the serious side where, making sure the people are getting a real living wage, right?
Yes, very important.
That's huge for us.
Crucial.
So we're an accredited living wage employer, and we apply that to our supply chain as well.
You do, yes.
Yeah, so that part of it is really key for us. We've had initiatives where we work with clients on NEAT programs, so working with young people that have never been in employment, education, or training, and we work with our service providers to provide opportunities. We've got an intern program at 3 Mills that helps young people from the local community, so that's Tower Hamlets and one of the other local authorities. Right. Young people get into the media industry. Yeah. And that's a 6-month kind of rolling program there.
Oh, really?
So I think that part of the social element of it is really important. And then governance, we still get asked, how do we manage suppliers? How do we manage health and safety? Making sure that we're being equitable in how we treat people. Fair terms and conditions. All of that kind of stuff. Yeah. People want to feel like when they're engaging with a service provider, managing agent or anything like that, we're doing right by them because we're acting on their behalf if they're our clients, and we're providing a service if they're our customers. So they want to make sure that we're doing that. So I think in terms of ESG, there's loads of opportunities. If you think governance, that's finance, that's health and safety, compliance, placemaking and what have you under social, and then sustainability and what have you under environmental. So lots of opportunities for ESG.
Yeah, see, I like the social piece. I like it. I like where it's going. Mm-hmm. In terms of, I think it's developing cultures within businesses that I think are positive as opposed to negative. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And I think that can only ever be a good thing, right?
Sure.
It's got to be at the end of the day. Okay, so AI. Love this question. What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence, Jason? And how do you think it will impact our industry over the next, say, 5 years?
My view is it's a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go back far enough, when you were doing property inspections, you'd have a clipboard and a pen and a check sheet.
The old biro was out.
Yeah. And now you've got apps, right? Yes. And that's to improve the quality of the service.
Yeah.
Make it more efficient.
Yeah.
But you still need somebody to go around and do the inspection, right? And somebody competent.
Yeah.
To be able to know what they're looking for.
Of course.
And I think that is going to be the same with AI.
Yeah.
It will be a tool that will improve efficiency, improve service delivery, and there's certain tasks that can be automated. But again, you get back to that governance part.
You do, yeah.
You can't. I would never feel as a customer comfortable in an automated process making a decision. So even looking at how building systems are managed, there's a lot of AI being introduced, but should only ever flag when something's out of parameter. There should be a judgment by a qualified engineer, for example, that is making an adjustment to a system.
Yeah.
You know, from our point of view, there could be, AI to help get people into the building and things, but that doesn't provide a greeting, that doesn't provide a service or an atmosphere or an environment. So I think there will always be cause for FMs to be present.
Yep.
I don't think there's any replacement for a very visible and accessible service when someone needs help. Is and I do that on personal experience. If I want to just do personal banking, I'll go to my app.
Yes.
If I've got a problem, I want to speak to somebody.
Yes, very true. That's very true. Yeah. And you can apply the same thing. So you think really it's going to be a plugin? It's going to be a support function to assist FMs and BMs and so on and so forth, as opposed to coming in, taking over. And
I think that'd be quite a cold building.
Yeah, I agree,
and would that therefore provide the environment to entice people back into the office?
No,
I don't think so either.
Well, COVID's changed things, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think in terms of what people want from their workplace, they want that engagement, they want that collaboration, that nice place to come in where there's events taking place. And I think AI could do lots and lots and lots of things, but it's probably not going to be able to think of fun things to people to do when they're on their lunch break or, events that, people can be involved in at work on a Friday afternoon because they've signed a significantly large deal or something like that and they want to celebrate. So I think you're completely right that, the human element needs to come in. Innovation's obviously a big piece, across the industry. When you're thinking about innovation or you're looking at ways to innovate within the industry, what advice would you give to somebody that was looking to, let's say you've got a BM or an FM, they work for you, they want to provide an innovative solution to their client because they want to add value, and what advice would you give them about I'm not saying give us an example of innovation, but what advice would you give to them around how to go search out that innovation and what's the best way to find the things that could be assisting their client?
So networking.
Yeah.
Get yourself out there, talk to your colleagues, talk to other people within the industry, do some of your own research. There's a lot of publications, again, IWFM, the Facilitate magazine, FMJ, all of those kinds of things. There's a huge amount of information in there in terms of new technologies, new approach to work, why things are done in a certain way. And bring ideas to the table. It's try not to be afraid.
Yes.
Take the step, be bold. I'd like to try this in my building. It would cost this. Return on investment is always a question that clients will ask or will ask. If it costs you 10 grand, how long is it going to take us for that to pay back? Tenants want to know that as well. We're spending their money.
Yes.
So have a chat, with your line manager, others, peers within the business in terms of if they've done a particular project, how did they approach it? I think there's a lot of good practice out there that, can be shared. I think it's very tempting when you're a building manager to think you're a silo and you're really not. And I think as you kind of come up into that industry, and particularly where you've come from a completely different sector, you've got a fresh pair of eyes. You've got the perfect opportunity to come in and go, I've seen this somewhere else. I've seen this somewhere else. I think this would be really good. Even if that's residential coming in commercial going into residential, all of these kind of different sectors, there's brilliance out there in so many different areas that there's opportunity to, you're not reinventing the wheel, but you're bringing something new to a particular building or service sector or something like that. So I think it's, do your research and don't be afraid to
make a mistake.
Well, hopefully not, but hopefully not, absolutely. I think there is that fear of what if it goes wrong, but what if it goes right?
And then you get the pat on the back. You know. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question I haven't asked anyone before. Actually, do you mind?
Oh, I don't know.
It's going to be a situational question. I know how people like them. Let's say it's your first week in facilities management. You know everything you know. Yeah, it's just been zapped into your brain. You're 25 years old. You're working into a new building that you're going to be managing. It's for Knight Frank. It's a nice little trophy asset building. In the first week, knowing everything you know, what would you do?
I would be a sponge.
Yeah.
So as much as I know,
what
I don't know is the occupiers.
Yes.
This is a new building.
Yeah.
So who are you? What are your priorities?
Yeah.
What's your ESG motivations? You know, what have your problems been previously? You know, what do you like about the service delivery? What don't you like about the service delivery?
Yeah.
You know, speaking to the on-site teams, you know, really understanding how I can help them. How can we as a team provide a better level of service to kind of occupiers?
Yeah.
Get round, know your building.
Yeah.
You know, and these are really kind of basic principles because they work.
Yeah.
You know, being visible.
Yes.
You know, making sure that your occupiers know that you're there. Yes, of course, I can come up and have a chat with you about this.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you're there for. They're paying your salary through the service charge.
Yes.
So I often use the analogy that, you know, a customer going into a restaurant doesn't employ the chef.
No. Yeah.
But they have a service expectation, right?
Yes.
So it's the same.
Yeah.
The occupiers within a building they're not your employer, but they are paying for a level of service. Yeah. And that demands presence.
Yes.
And accessibility.
Yeah.
So as much as there's a lot of admin and you could do your working week from your desk. Yeah. But where's the fun in that?
Yeah. Really interesting. Of all the things you could have said, you know, you just said do the basics.
Yeah.
You know, and
brilliantly.
Yeah, but that's you know, there is no better advice, is there? You know, do the basics, do the things that are important. You know, all of the other stuff doesn't necessarily matter.
Well, do the basics first.
Yeah.
And then you've got that foundation to come on and add all those additional value added and you know, look at all these, you know, innovations that you want to introduce. But that's
of course
gonna not work as well as it could if the basics are not there.
Okay. Can I ask you another question? I haven't asked anyone. What's the worst innovation that anybody's ever put in front of you in your entire career? Have you got something? It's probably a bit out there, but I think it's quite an interesting question. I'd love to know if there's anything that just stands out.
I think it's timing. I think COVID was an absolute nightmare for innovations because there were so many charlatans jumping on the bandwagon that we've got this product that can kill COVID or can deal with this or can deal with that kind of thing. And there just wasn't the scientific backup.
Well, there wasn't the time, was there?
Yeah. So this is new. No one's ever done it before.
Yeah.
And it was actually the previous version of COVID or whatever it was that it can cure. It wasn't COVID-19.
No.
So it was... But having to go through all of that, trying to do some due diligence because everybody was, you know, we want to keep our buildings open and,
of course,
and stuff like that. Yeah. And guidance was changing weekly, if not daily.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of dross that came out of that period of time in terms of innovation.
Yeah.
You know, be that approaches to cleaning, be that chemicals, be that retrofitting AC or, you know, ventilation with, you know, to, you know, cut COVID coming into your building. It's like, well, most of your air handling units are actually up on the roof.
Yeah.
You know, so you're bearing in mind the guidance at the time was to pump in fresh air and not recirculate. Why would I need UV in my building when I'm not?
I remember the UV.
Yeah,
I do
remember when I'm not recirculating air. So there's things. You know, in isolation, it looked brilliant.
Yeah,
but when you started to look at the practical application of it, it was didn't really fill me with a great deal of confidence.
I'll tell you what I thought, and I agree with everything you said there. But there's like a little side of me that thinks, you know what, people are interesting. because by God, did they come up with things quickly that may or may not work. You know, like in terms of people that see an opportunity, I can make a few quid here. You know, like human beings, just in general, very, you know, entrepreneurial. That kind of attitude.
And I think it's the more simple innovations that have lasted. Even now, I still go into buildings and I can see the foot-operated sanitizer pumps.
Yes.
You know, very mechanical. Didn't even get into sensors or anything like that.
Good.
But they were out there, and they're still in service, kind of thing. So
I like the touch points you don't have to touch.
Yeah,
you know, they're great. Yeah. To be fair, just nice.
Still got to push the door though, right?
Yeah. Well, for the mechanized doors. Yeah. Okay. What advice would you give to the next generation of facilities professionals coming through?
I think it's a really interesting industry.
Yes.
You know, I've been in it a long time.
Yep.
My roles and my job has changed and developed. You know, the touch point we had on ESG, that's going to change. You know, there's opportunities to grow and diversify within FM. And I think you don't really get that in very many other industries.
No, agreed.
For you to, you know, if you want your career to go in a particular direction, you can do that within the FM industry while still staying with, you know, potentially, you know, one employer, for example.
Yeah.
And I think it's bring the right attitude, and that's just that's not just for work. That's, you know, for everything.
That's important. That's really important.
And accept the opportunity when it arises.
Yeah, so say yes. Yeah. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, go for that interview, even if you're not 100% on the skills requirement and things like that, because really and truthfully, it's only a problem if they say yes, right?
Well, yeah,
and they would have only have said yes because they see the skills, not necessarily what you put down on paper, but they see the potential in you. They're more likely to have said yes because of that than what you've put down on a CV.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, in terms of the team that you look after now, in totality, I know that you probably manage a set. How many people are you responsible for in totality?
We have probably about 220 people within Promise at the moment. So we're not the biggest organisation out there, but we do put our people first.
Yeah,
you know, we do value every single one of those individuals within our business.
Yeah.
And then I've got a brilliant operations board that support me in my role. That's 9 individuals across the business. Some of those are those kind of rising stars that we've got in terms of our next generation of regional heads and heads of FM kind of thing in the future. You know, and that's part of that succession planning for
the people that will allow you to retire eventually, Jason.
I'm not. I've got 4 kids. I'm not retiring until I'm 70.
Same, mate. Same. Well done. Okay. Well, just touching on, what do you like to do outside of work then? You know, moving away from facilities management for a moment. What do you enjoy doing outside of work?
Sleeping. I have motion sensitive narcolepsy, so I'll ask my wife if I sit down long enough, I'm usually asleep.
Really?
Yeah, the kids absolutely rib me for it.
Honestly,
I love spending time with my family.
Yep.
Reading when I get the opportunity. You know, getting out and about in nature.
Do you have any particular type of book that you like to read?
No, not really. It can go from biographies to science fiction to crime. Yeah, I don't mind technical.
Yeah.
You know, if there's something that piques an interest from a technical point of view, changing legislation, I'm quite like reading up on that. You know, right. I like to be an informed client as well.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
very much so.
So
okay, brilliant. Well, listen, Jason, that's the end of the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, very good. Very enjoyable. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. And that's the end of the podcast, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you really enjoyed that episode of Wear Many Hats. I know I did. It's been a real delight for me, actually. And we will see you next time. Take care.